Good afternoon, rather, and welcome to the May 27th meeting of the Charlotte City Council COVID-19 Task Force. My name is Malcolm Graham. I am the coordinator of the task force and a member of the Charlotte City Council representing District 2. We have a full agenda today, and what I want to do before I move forward is to welcome our viewing audience and those who have been with us for the past month, and welcome those from the public who are joining us today, and give you a brief overview of the committee's objectives so you can know who we are and why we are here. And basically our objectives are is to work with the Charlotte City Council as we move through COVID-19 and provide solutions that here are on the ground to anticipate and plan for Charlotte's post-recovery challenges, listen to the community regarding the challenges people are facing, develop recommendations for how the City of Charlotte, specifically city government, can pivot to support changes needed as a result of COVID-19, and to provide residents with long-term vision for a healthy and prosperous community. And so we have been here doing this for a while now, going on for a month, and so I want to thank everyone for working with us and our task force members. In your write-ups, pre-reads, you should receive the bios for all our guests who will be with us today, as well as the pre-read for our new introduced topic, which will be financial assistance. That was there as well as information regarding the housing recovery recommendations, which we will be discussing and voting on this afternoon as well. So our agenda is packed. On task force members, we may be here a little bit longer than we generally are, and so I want to kind of get right to the agenda by first introducing all our task force members. Again, my name is Malcolm Graham, member of the Charlotte City Council, coordinator of the COVID-19 Housing Task Force. Members, would you please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Larkin Eggleston, Charlotte City Council member, District 1, and task force member.
Okay. Good afternoon, Johnson, Charlotte City Council, District 4.
Braxton Winston, Charlotte City Council member at large.
Lee Cochran, Laurel Street, task force member.
Kathy Cummings, Bank of America task force member.
Oh, yes.
Fred Dodson with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Housing Partnership and member of the task force.
Good morning. Kim Graham, Executive Director for the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association.
Good afternoon. This is Anthony Lindsay. I'm with Caldwell Banker and a member of the North Carolina Real Estate Commission.
Good afternoon. This is Deronda Metz. I'm with the Salvation Army. I am representing the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Continuum of Care for those that are homeless in our community.
Good afternoon, it's Connie Staudinger. I'm representing Horizon Development Properties, whose sole member is in Vivian.
And if our staff will introduce themselves.
Pamela Weidman, Director of City's Housing and Neighborhood Services Department.
Thank you very much, and we will go right into our agenda with agenda item number 3, which is the Housing Recovery Funding recommendations. Task force members, as you are aware of, several meetings ago I made mention that the City of Charlotte received $150 million CARE funding from the federal government to be used specifically related to COVID-19 activities in our community. The funds were officially accepted by the Charlotte City Council on this past Monday, and $20 million were earmarked for issues relating to affordable housing. Staff has made a recommendation in terms of how $10 million should be allocated. Just a couple of notes for your information. Again, all of the dollars that were awarded to the city has to be allocated and spent by December 31st, 2020. All the dollars have to be spent related to activities related to COVID-19. $20 million has been allocated to issues relating to affordable housing. 10 has been recommended in terms of 4 for rent relief, 4 for mortgage relief, and 2 to support homeless issues in terms of SRO housing. The information was sent to you in your package. It talks about how the funds will be utilized, the initiative. It talks about the vehicles in which the funds will be implemented, program eligibilities, as well as an anticipated timeline for how the dollars will be utilized. The recommendations that staff presented focuses on 3 issues of our work plan, and as I indicated earlier, that the dollars will be allocated to the work plan that was officially approved by this committee. Those are items number 1, 2, 3, and 4, increased affordable housing, financial assistance, evictions, as well as homeless and supportive services. Again, $4 million for rent, $4 million for mortgage relief, $2 million for supportive services relating to SRO housing with a community partner above roof, formerly known as Urban Ministries. I'll pause at this time to ask for a motion to accept the staff recommendation, and then we'll officially put it on the floor for discussion.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been approved and formally second that we accept the staff recommendation. Now the issues on the floor for discussion by any committee members. Mr. Winston.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad we are able to discuss this because I don't recall discussing this amongst the task force, the specifics of this. I have several questions. How is this different? How is this different? How we changed the process? How sustainable is this? How long will this funding last? How many people are we able to secure with this? Is this the best use and highest and best use of this money? I do recall in several conversations we talked about that just simply doing direct rent relief is not something that is going to be sustainable and is not a systemic approach that we can take. So I'd like to just kind of start the discussion there.
That's why.
Yeah, Mr. Winston, thank you so much for those questions. And if I could refer back to the write-up, all good questions. As far as I will say that your staff got to this based on kind of the conversations that we've heard over the past 4 task force meetings. But let me see if I can start at number 1. You asked how this is different. So this would be different. The initial tranche of rent and mortgage relief was with your CDBG dollars that we received. And so that was, again, a limited amount of money. And for the rent relief, that money is being invested into city-supported properties, right? And so what that means is money where the city had previously invested money. We talked at the council about how we wanted to keep those folks housed. We believe that those also are some of the most vulnerable residents in our community. As far as the mortgage relief, we talked about, again, really that money being used to support House Charlotte participants by and large, but not limited to House Charlotte participants. So
these monies are not for all Charlotte residents. These monies are, the way we're recommending that to be spent is only for a narrow portion.
No, sir. I was attempting to answer your question about how this would be different. So that was the first round of dollars. This money would be different because we've heard through the task force meetings, particularly I'll refer back to an earlier comment by task force member Kim Graham about how can we also work with landlords who might be offering affordable housing to people who are not in a city-supported property. So this allocation of these dollars would allow us to work broader, in a broader way with people who also might be in affordable house, a naturally occurring affordable unit, or with landlords to keep them housed as well. So this would give us the ability to work with more people who are also earning 80% and below the area median income, not limited to the narrow pool that you had in your first round of funding. In terms of a systemic approach, I'm glad you said that. This additional round of funding would allow us to work with partners across our community so that we best leverage the funding with what's going on in other areas. You're right, we don't want to just be making direct payments to people with no sustainable approach. So it would give us an opportunity to work with our other partners to figure out the best way to implement this. We don't have numbers of people who would be served today based on this money. What we wanted to do was go ahead and get it allocated and again work with our partners to figure out what the right amounts would be, and so that would inform how many people would be served.
What kind of assurances are we getting for people that come and take this money? Another situation I don't want to get in is that we're paying people, paying landlords to keep people in homes, and it's only good for a month or two, and those folks are just getting pushed out onto the street. Once that one-time payment is up, what kind of buy-in are we going to be asking the landlords to come and take this money?
Sure. So, Mr. Winston, let me say, we're not suggesting that it be a one-time payment, because we know that this is a long-term issue. In terms of what assurances are we getting from landlords, I can't tell you that today. What I can tell you is that will be one of the negotiation factors that we work out with landlords, that we don't just pay you, have someone pay their rent and then you kick them out over the next month or so. So we don't have all the details of the program. You'll recall from Monday night, we were just asking to approve the allocations of the funding, and then we would amend the contracts that we have and bring you back the details in terms of amount per subsidy and how long it would last.
Why are we doing it that way? Why if we're allocating money that you're saying isn't going to be spent, why wouldn't we set up rules and procedures before we allocate the money?
So again, we were trying to, based on what we were hearing at your meetings, we were trying to be immediate. We were trying to go ahead and amend existing infrastructure that we have. We know that mortgage and rent relief is going to be an issue, and so we were just trying to be as expedient as possible. You have on your information kind of anticipated timelines for when we would be working out the details in each of the programs. So that's where we are at this point.
And part of what we said was we wanted to kind of get the money on the street now, that's only one narrowly tailored portion of it, for a wide variety of usage in terms of rent relief and mortgage relief. Mr. Cochran.
This is partly question, partly maybe clarification. I'm assuming from what I'm hearing that this is going to follow kind of the model, to your point, Ms. Weidman, that the model has kind of been set up with a limited number of properties and properties that we own have been using that model, where the tenant is really the one applying for the funds. They go and find, if they are having trouble paying their rent, they apply for the funds. The payment is made to the property owner, the landlord, but it's on behalf of the tenant. So if there is a month's worth of rent, that brings the tenant current. If they're behind on their rent, they get a payment. So it's really a payment for the tenant to the landlord. And it kind of fits with, I think, one of our goals in this was to not let tenants get behind. So while you can't evict a resident right now, if they're not paying their rent, you're just kind of kicking the can. These payments, I assume, would, both on rental assistance and home ownership, would keep tenants and homeowners current on their payments as they move forward. So I just want to confirm that you envision a program similar to what the program that's already functioning, and now you're just expanding it to a broader group of tenants.
Mr. Cochran, thank you for that clarification, and I apologize if I wasn't clear initially. Yes, this is building on the existing program, and we would be making payments directly to the landlord or the property owner, not to the tenants.
Ms. Johnson? Councilmember Johnson?
Sorry, thank you. We know that with COVID-19 that everyone is affected, not just low and moderate income earning individuals. So is there any assistance for individuals who may have lost a job or been financially impacted due to COVID-19 who don't fit in the 80% and below?
So, Ms. Johnson, this funding was not envisioned for folks earning above 80%. I, to date, am not aware that United Way, they had also offered some assistance, and I too believe that theirs is also for 80% and below.
Okay. And then secondly, can you confirm that this rental assistance will be available for individuals who are permanent residents of hotels?
So thank you for asking that. And so as we've thought about it and as we've envisioned the program, again, it has to be for folks who are impacted as a result of COVID. So if someone was living in a hotel, they lost their job or suffered a loss of income reduction because of COVID, yes, we would, this funding, and again, it's limited for funding, would be available for that individual's rent based on them being able to prove that they were impacted because of COVID.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lindsay?
Thank you, Mr. Graham. I guess I also wanted to make sure I understand. It appears from the write-up there is a sort of a case management component to this process. I mean, this is these funds will be allocated on a case-by-case basis, which to me implies that there's some assessment of the recipient's need, and part of the decision-making process would seem to be that based on that need would drive what level of assistance they might be eligible for or qualify for. So it's not some random process of just giving out money. There is some sort of assessment, individual assessment that's occurring that's helping to determine the level of funding. Am I correct on that?
You are exactly right, Mr. Lindsay, and thank you for pointing that out. It would be a case-by-case basis. And again, at the end of the day, I'll just keep repeating, and I'm sorry to be redundant, that this is about, to the extent we can, helping people be successful, right? We know that COVID is long-term. We know that each individual circumstance will be different. So, and we know that at some point this money will run out, right? So we do want to make sure we're looking at individual cases. We want to make sure that we're working with our partners across the system to make sure that we're allocating correct amounts. And to the extent we can, we're linking people with services and programs to help them get back on their feet or be successful kind of in a post-COVID environment.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes, I just wanted to emphasize the fact that we're not creating these programs out of whole cloth. I mean, we've had some experience with this over the past couple of months, including creating online applications that are very easy to complete if the applicant doesn't have access to the internet. We're doing applications over the phone. And so we'll be able to use the lessons that we've learned so far in the past couple of months for these new programs and for a wider audience as well. Also, I just want to state that I think the need is urgent. I mean, June is going to be kind of a critical month for a lot of people. We need to get this money out and helping people as quickly as we possibly can. So I just wanted to make sure to say that, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to use these additional funds to help more people.
Ms. Metz?
Good afternoon. So I think Charlotte-Mecklenburg Housing Partnership is a great vendor for administering these funds. I've had some experience with them working with some of our families that were in our rapid rehousing programs. I do want to ask though, because this is a huge increase. Are we supporting them as far as having the capacity to be able to address the needs? So I know since COVID-19, we've been doing several initiatives, but really hadn't had the staffing capacity, and people have to wait. And just want to recommend that we make sure that they do have the staffing as well. And are these just rental assistance dollars, or some of it for the administration of the funds? Thank you.
So, Ms. Metz, thank you for that. And I did on Sunday evening have a conversation with Julie Porter, who is the executive director of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Housing Partnership, to talk about just that, staffing. And so she assured me that the CMH, the Housing Partnership, was in a position to staff up to be able to effectively administer the program.
Connie, welcome.
Thank you very much. My question is just more relating to what we are expecting in June with the court systems, and to Fred's point about communication and the communication going out for the funds and the availability of the funds. Are we making the mediators or the court system aware that these funds are there so that we can sort of stave off some of these evictions that are potentially going to occur? That was my first question. And second, you said that the funds would be paid directly to landlords. In the case of a homeowner, would the funds be paid directly to the mortgage holder in the case of an applicant who is a homeowner?
So Connie, let me take a stab at those. So to answer your last question first, we envision paying it to the mortgage company, right? Again, so not to the homeowner, and paying it to the mortgage company. In terms of marketing, you make a really great point about making sure that not only our residents know, but that the court system knows. And so we will work to do that. You'll hear a presentation later on in the meeting from the Community Relations Committee about how they're going to be working to help with evictions through their mediation process. So I think there is a link. There is a natural link that we can go a little further to make sure that the courts are aware as well. So thank you for that.
Very good. Thank you.
Welcome, Kim.
So first of all, I just want to thank the City Council and the manager for advancing this initiative. I think it's really important for us to remember something that was said earlier about assistance that came from the multifamily industry. I mentioned that Camden's REIT created a $5 million grant program for its residents to receive up to $2,000, and that was just for the month of April. And they were able to give out up to, I think, 2,000 grants out of that $5 million. And this is $4 million. And so if we think about how we want to most effectively use these resources, we could use it in partnership with the CRC and the mediation program in order to stave off some of the evictions cases. We've heard from the courts that there are 1,800 summary ejectments as of last week. More than half of those are probably for people who couldn't pay all or some of their rent for the month of April and potentially for March. And so I could see this money being used for folks who earn under 80% potentially, even as much as 100% of AMI in increments of up to $500 per month to help them bridge the gap between what they could afford for the month and what they need to also pay for the rest of the month. And you could get them through July even. And if they get access to unemployment insurance, then they could also have some money from that, and then maybe get on to some further employment after that and not need further assistance. But I see this being able to help us tremendously with the backlog of evictions cases that are right now going to be docketed as of Monday.
Okay. Any additional questions from the task force members?
Just one clarifying point. these question. So these payments will be made directly to landlords. Will they be under the expectation that they're getting full payment of rents?
Yeah.
What,
Again, Mr. Winston, a case-by-case basis, right? So I don't want to be overly prescriptive. You may have someone who has already started getting unemployment, and so an example could be a rent is $800, right? And a person could pay, $600. I'm sorry?
Where do they have $800 rents?
I'm just using for an example for easy math. A person could pay a portion of their rent, whatever that rent might be, and so they might not need the full allocation of rents. And so again, we certainly want to be as prudent as we can with our funding. And so their payment, their subsidy or assistance might be $200 per month. Someone else might need the fully loaded rent. So again, that's why we want to take the opportunity to work with them on a case-by-case basis. But the property owner should expect that some way, somehow, either from us, from this funding to have a full rent payment, or a combination of this funding coupled with what the tenant can do to have a full rent payment.
All right, I just have concerns. We're approaching this is going to be an expensive kind of kick the can down the road just to buy more time before people get kicked out, and that that this will. I'm just concerned that landlords will rely on this and not make changes to the business model or to work with tenants in the city to find a more systemic, permanent solution as we deal with this. That's my big concern.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes, I wanted to piggyback off what Ms. Graham said. If we could use these dollars and partner with the mediation process, and maybe there are landlords during that mediation that would settle for less than 100%, then that would stretch the dollars a little more, if that's something we can think about, and use work with the CRC as a priority. And also, what is the time frame that these dollars will be available?
So we are open to your suggestion and Ms. Graham's suggestion. I think it's a wonderful suggestion. Again, in your write-up, we have an anticipated timeline for how we want to move forward once these are approved. Again, we'll work with our partners, get the contracts executed, and based on how fast we can go and what the program looks like, Ms. Johnson, that will inform our timeline for when the dollars are available. So today, I can't tell you that we will have the dollars on the street by a particular date. What our goal is we want to establish, I'll go back to your write-up, establish the expanded guidelines by June 12th on the mortgage assistance, and then our goal for the rental assistance would be to implement the expanded program by June 26th. So again, those are our goals. We want to get this money out as fast as we can, but we want to make sure that we've worked with our partners like CRC, like the Greater Apartment Association, like our supportive services folks, to make sure that we set up the best a program that will, across the system, that will make a difference.
So I just want to be clear in our communication. In the city council meeting, it was my understanding that you said 60 to 90 days. So I just want to make it clear for anyone who's listening that these dollars are not going to be available to pay June rent. So are we thinking 60 to 90 days, or are those June dates or July?
Yeah. We're working, Ms. Johnson, as fast as we can. 60 to 90 days is certainly, I believe it gives us enough time. If we can do it sooner, based on these dates that we have here, we will be working as soon as we have the green light to go forward to work with our programs. We are ready to begin work expanding our programs, amending our contracts, and establishing the programs. And again, we are not starting from scratch.
And I just want to remind the task force that we have money on the streets right now, currently, for rent relief and mortgages.
We do. We have your existing tranche for the city-supported properties, and we have mortgage relief on for House Charlotte participants and others who are 80% and below the area median income.
And also the United Way Foundation of the Carolinas have monies on the street right now via other various nonprofit organizations. And so there's money out there. This recommendation further expands the pool and provide additional resources for those who need it, short-term and long-term. And as I indicated before, this is a marathon. And so we're going to need dollars in June, July, August, September, and October. And so I think the approach that we're taking and the road that we're traveling down is the correct one to take. Ms. Graham, and then we'll call the question.
I actually lowered my hand, but I will say that to Councilwoman Johnson's comment about rents that are going to be due in June is, while we might not have money available to be on the street, any forward commitments that the mediation group can use to negotiate in mediations would be helpful, because, I mean, an IOU means something from the city of Charlotte. It's not like a regular IOU. So even if there's a way, if monies won't get to them immediately before the end of June, if there's a way for them to negotiate in good faith so that they know that monies will be coming, because that will allow them to then negotiate with whoever they have debt service with in that instance.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor that has been duly seconded to accept the staff recommendation to accept $10 million, $8 million for rent relief, mortgage relief, $2 million to support SRO supportive housing with urban ministries, i.e. above roof. Those in favor, could you raise your hand so we can see you all? I think we have to do a roll call. So let's do a roll call so we can make sure that everyone is accounted for. Okay, Councilmember Eggleston.
Yay.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Winston.
Yeah.
Mr. Cochran.
Yay.
Ms. Cummings.
Yay.
Mr. Dodson.
Yay.
Ms. Graham.
Yes.
Mr. Lindsay.
Aye.
Ms. Metz.
Yes.
Ms. Steiner.
Yes.
Yes, Connie, thank you. You bailed me out. So that is officially approved. Thank you very much, Pam, Ms. Wyman. Thank you very much for the excellent presentation. And we'll pivot to the recommendations from our number one work plan item, which is increasing the supply of affordable housing. Our leads have done a tremendous job over the last 2 weeks, and they stand ready today to present their recommendations. So I'll turn it over to Lee and Fred. Thank you for your work, and I look forward to hearing your presentation.
I'll start. Thank you, Councilmember Graham. I just want to say before we get started that I really appreciate this opportunity to serve, and also the opportunity to work with my friend Lee Cochran again. Lee and I have been building affordable housing for quite some time now. We know a lot about affordable housing, but we don't know everything. So I really appreciate all the comments that we've received from others during this process. We've been able to incorporate some of the comments, not all the comments yet. But so I encourage you to continue to send us your thoughts and also make comments for the other working groups who will follow us. Well, with that being said, we'll get started with the presentation. So next slide. One thing that we wanted to do to start was just to give some important principles and background. First of all, and this is critically important to me and for the affordable housing community, is that it's very, very important that we maintain a high quality as far as design is concerned, as far as construction materials are concerned, for all of our developments. And we should also encourage mixed income communities built to market rate standards. I can't emphasize enough how important that is, even in these challenging times when we're still dealing with construction costs, that are at historic highs. We need to continue to build quality. So I'll leave with that. Also, we spent a lot of time over the past few years developing the City of Charlotte housing framework. Now, with COVID, we've learned some new lessons, but the framework that we had prior to COVID is still very relevant to us. And so we need to maintain that framework and perhaps incorporate new lessons that we're learning right now. Next is the fact that we believe that supportive housing is very important for our community. These developments are currently produced as perhaps a smaller component for a larger development, or we have standalone supportive housing developments as well. Those developments are very important, and we need to continue to support those. The recommendations that Lee and I put together are limited to the remaining 2018 Housing Trust Fund bonds, but also for the new round of the 2020 proposed $50 million Housing Trust Fund bond proceeds as well. Next slide. We think these are the correct uses for the 2020 Housing Trust Fund bond. First, new construction of affordable rental housing. That, of course, includes supportive housing. New construction of for sale housing. We've talked about that quite a bit, and we think that is a great use for trust fund funding. In addition to that, rehabilitation and preservation of affordable rental housing. That includes NOAHs, or naturally occurring affordable housing, also supportive housing within those developments as well. The one thing that we want to talk about, and Lee will talk about this more, but as far as how we target the use of the $50 million funding, we have recommended a target and not a cap, of 60% for new construction of rental, 30% for rehabilitation and preservation, and 10% for new for sale affordable housing. Again, these are targets, and we propose that it be reevaluated at when applications are received to determine what the actual demand is. For example, there may not be as much demand for the acquisition of naturally occurring affordable housing, and there may be more demand for new construction of housing. So that's one thing to keep in mind, and that's part of our recommendation. Next slide. And we will go through this entire presentation and then ask your question. As we assessed how we're going to use the $50 million for the 2020 Housing Trust Fund bond, there are certain things that we thought would not be a great use for that bond funding. One is the thing the use that we just talked about, and that's rental assistance. That is not a great use for the trust fund funding. We would like that to come from other city or county funding for rental assistance. And there's also a shortage of units available to receive rental assistance, or where that may be acceptable. So again, we think that trust fund funding should be used for long-term capital needs. Also, it's not a great idea to use trust fund funding for acquisitions such as land banking or naturally occurring affordable housing that may not need trust fund funding. So we need to look for other private resources or funding from LISC or other community development financial institutions with CDFIs to provide the capital needed for those types of acquisitions and preserve our trust fund funding, the gap financing needed for affordable housing, new construction, and rehabilitation and preservation. Next slide. As far as the frequency of applications, for new construction and for of rental housing and for sale housing, in addition to no acquisition, we recommend, for the preservation, we recommend application cycles of twice a year. For no acquisitions, that's a little different because you have to be ready to take advantage of opportunities as they arise. So we recommend that there be a rolling application process for no acquisitions and not just limit those acquisitions to twice a year. Because as those properties come on the market, we have to be ready to move quickly. And otherwise, because of the fact that Charlotte remains a very strong real estate market and there's a lot of demand for these units, we have to be able to compete in order to buy the properties that don't currently have deed restrictions or affordability restrictions and acquire those properties and put those restrictions on them. So we have to be ready to act. Otherwise, we should have 2 opportunities per year. With that, I'll turn it over to Lee to cover the remaining slides, and then we'll answer questions.
Thanks, Fred. You can get to the next slide. So I'm going to, as we transition, I'm going to now talk about specific recommendations related to the uses that Fred and I were recommending. So starting with affordable rental housing, I think it's important to note that this one slide covers both new construction and preservation and rehabilitation, including NOAAs. So in our world, in our mind, and the committee has talked about this. A unit built is equal to a unit preserved. So whether you're building a new unit or preserving a naturally occurring unit, those are both creating one unit or saving one unit. So when evaluating how you spend your money and how to do AMI restrictions, you should almost look at both the same way. So these recommendations are really related to both new construction and rehab / NOAA. So we want to continue the focus. There wasn't a ton of discussion, but mainly because I think this is something that's well established. We want to continue to focus at least 20% of the units in every development at 30% AMI, whether it's a new construction or a rehabilitation and a NOAA. We want to have that target. It's in the framework. It's in the 2018 framework. I think it's important to maintain. It's still where the greatest need is, so we want to continue that. But the second recommendation is a bit of a switch. It's a bit of a change. It's to address 2 items. One is location. We heard a lot about equitable distribution, and we also heard a lot about, are we really hitting every AMI we need to? Right now, we're hitting 30% of AMI because the city has said you need to. If you want to do trust funds, you have to have 20% at 30. So that's why you're seeing proposals at that level. Then most of the other units are being hit at 60% AMI or 80% AMI because of federal funding requirements. There's nothing specifically requiring 50% AMI. So there is a little bit of a gap that's created. The way we propose to help fill that gap is with the subsidy cap. So our recommendation, there was a lot of recommendations around raising the subsidy cap per unit based on the last RFP. We think that's appropriate, and also that cap be different depending on the type of development. So if a development is in District 6 or 7 where there has not been much of any preservation or new construction, you would allow a higher subsidy cap, a higher trust fund request per unit if the development is in one of those districts. Also, based on the average AMI served, so a development is going to come in, it's going to have 20% at 30 because that's a requirement, but then based on the average AMI served, how many at 50, how many at 60, there'd be kind of a rolling or a graduated, the lower the AMI, average AMI you're serving, the higher request you're going to get from the Housing Trust Fund. That will incent developers to have some units at 50% AMI. So we'll be able to fill that kind of that hole that was created between 30 and 60. We do think it's important though that this cap be reevaluated every time the city puts out an RFP, and I think a panel like this task force or a smaller group that kind of has experience in the industry, whether it's lenders, developers, others, could help establish those caps before every RFP. It also could be a time to evaluate whether there's other funds available. So part of the reason the cap was where it was because of the choice funds that were available. If those funds are continued to be available, that will affect how much housing trust fund per unit should go into each development. So this would be something that would be determined every time there was an RFP. I will make one note.
Did we lose audio?
I think we lost audio as well as video for Mr. Cochran. And so we'll try to see if we can reach him again, unless Fred wants to pick up where he dropped off.
Yes, if we can go to the next slide. And we'll wait for Lee will come back on, he can pick up. But what I want to talk about is just the affordable for sale housing, which that hasn't been, that's always been allowed as far as trust funds are concerned, but we haven't emphasized that at all. But I think that there's a great need for that. And what we've determined is that in order for sale housing to work in this context, we must include a minimum of 20% of the homes in a development eligible for people who are at 60% AMI or below. There's almost no product available like that for people at that income other than Habitat homes in this market. And the Housing Trust Fund investment per unit would be based on an average AMI served. In addition to that, we are really targeting the Housing Trust Fund ask be based upon a particular project location and for a certain number of homes within that location. We also have received lots of comments about a land trust as well, and whether or not we can use Housing Trust Fund funding for that. So we're open to that as far as using Housing Trust Fund funding for the for sale product in using the land trust model as well. Now, the next item is in regard to whether or not we will establish a deed restriction for the for sale homes. And we always debate this quite a bit because you have competing interests there. First, you want people to use their home to encourage investment and upward mobility. But you also don't, you want them to stay there for some time in order to grow their investment in their home and also to preserve affordability. So we've done that in the past through the House Charlotte program, where there's a 10-year deed restriction. In this case, we're recommending a 15-year deed restriction, which is consistent with the use of home funding and for sale homes. So that is our recommendation as far as affordability is concerned. Next slide. Okay. As far as the remaining 2018 Housing Trust Fund funds, because I think there's around $7 million remaining, we are recommending that funding, as far as the second round is concerned, that there be a slight delay in that second round in order to really understand what the effects of COVID will be on the market. Things are changing, and we still don't know what the federal response will be, if any, as far as the housing-related response for COVID, or whether or not there will be changes to the tax credit program to make that more viable during this period of time. So we need to wait a little while to see what happens in the market. Part of that is the fact that there may be some developments that have already been funded that may have new gaps created by changes in the market due to COVID. For example, in our initial meetings, I mentioned the fact that for taxes and bond developments, the tax credit rate is at a historic low. We don't know if it's going to go any lower, but that rate is very, very important. And as it falls, then new gaps are being created in those developments. I don't want to lose a single unit because of that. If we have the ability to access local funding to make those deals viable. But again,
Fred, I think Lee is back with us.
Yep. That couldn't have been worse. That couldn't have been worse timing, but I'm sure Fred did a great job.
I'll let you take a picture.
We just assigned you a lot more work, but that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm fine. That's good. I am going to probably turn my video off just to make sure that's not the issue. So, but I think we can probably go to the last slide, and then we can. So one of the things that was mentioned many times through some of the comments to the task force was other resources that could stretch the ability of the Housing Trust Fund to do more units with the same amount of Housing Trust Fund. So these are really kind of other recommendations. They aren't specific to how we use the trust fund, but really how we use the trust fund with other resources. So one option is, and this is drawing on the city of Asheville does this. They have kind of a matrix and a package of additional benefits that a project can get if it meets certain requirements. And the more it does, the more it gets. So the lower the AMI it serves, the more benefits it gets. And it comes almost automatically. I think the way we envisioned it was if you're applying for Housing Trust Fund, depending on the nature of your development, you would automatically apply for some other benefits that would then lower the amount of Housing Trust Fund you would need. The couple of the three that we mentioned, which are really the three biggest ones, and this again is modeled off of the city of Asheville. One would be a grant back of your property taxes. And when we say model for Mecklenburg County, we think if the city will do this, the Mecklenburg County, which is where about 2/3 of our property taxes go, could just draft right off of that model. So if the city can show how it's done, I think the county might be supportive of doing the same thing because you already have a policy in place. So this would be a certain amount of the incremental property taxes that you create would be granted back to the development for a certain number of years. And the percentage and the number of years would be based on the criteria of what AMI you're serving or other criteria. In addition, you could get an elimination or reduction of your water and sewer capacity and connection fees, which are all administered by Charlotte Water. So that's one entity. And then finally, your other permit fees. So this includes site plan approval permit, site plan permit fees that are controlled by the city. And again, the city could be the model, and then the county could just draft onto the same policy for their building permit fees. So most of our building permit fees are paid to the county, but they could, if the model is there, it'd be very easy for them to join. So that's just a way. Another way to stretch the Housing Trust Fund is the use of city-owned land. The city already has a city-owned land policy that was adopted a couple of years ago. It's been used several times. So we should continue to use that, but also let it be a model for Mecklenburg County and CMS as to how to use your land. But again, if you pair it with the Housing Trust Fund, you get more units for the same amount of trust fund. And then finally, the last bullet is something we talked about earlier. I won't belabor it from past presentations. Was these are places where the city could be an advocate to make sure that the federal government and the state government are taking steps to address affordable housing and any COVID-19 challenges. And this is in fixing the 4% tax credit as a real tax credit at the federal level. And then at the state level, if there's needed, if projects that have gaps because of COVID-19 can get additional tax credits, advocating that happens. And then the long term is the new state tax credit, the one that was just passed in South Carolina. That will be an uphill battle, I think, but it would be a great tool for North Carolina. So I think that's the last slide, and I think Fred and I can take questions about anything throughout the presentation.
Fred and Lee, thank you very much for that presentation and those recommendations. I was really impressed as I read through them in terms of how detailed they were and specific in some cases, and that's exactly what we wanted. So I'll open it up to task force members for those who may have some questions in reference to the presentation. Any questions? Commissioner Lindsay.
Thanks, Councilmember Graham. A couple of things. One on procedure. What's the best way for us to provide feedback on these recommendations? How would you all like to handle that? I'm sure we don't want to spend our time right now doing all of that. So what's the best mechanism for that?
Our goal was to actually vote on them today. And if that's not the case, if you guys want to review them over the weekend and provide input and comments to them, we can hold that off until next Thursday. So let's do that since folks are just seeing them for the first time.
Right.
So we'll just, if you have any comments, recommendations, any additions, just feel free to send it directly to Lee and Fred, and then we'll just discuss it one more time next week, and then we'll ask for a formal adoption of them so we can forward on to the council.
And I'd add, this is Lee. We've been, I think what Fred and I have mostly been doing is collecting feedback in order to then put these recommendations forward. I think, Mr. Lindsay, I think over the next week, we're happy to be a little bit more interactive now that we kind of have a set of recommendations. If you have questions or comments, I think we can respond back and say, hey, here's why we didn't put something in, or yes, I think that makes sense to make that change, just so we can make it a little bit more active over the next 7 days. So by the time we come back, we may have answered questions or made some tweaks based on that feedback.
I think that's probably a better procedural process than I envisioned. So let's do that. Again, just send everything to Fred and Lee, copy Ms. Weidman so we can kind of make sure we keep track of the request, and we'll move forward that way. Councilmember Johnson?
Yeah, I will send my questions to Fred and Lee, but I would like to hear Ms. Weidman's initial thoughts on this presentation. They all seem like, with some questions and clarification, they seem like great and solution-focused suggestions. Are there any that stand out for you, Pam, that will be challenging for the city?
I would concur, Ms. Johnson. Again, just freshly reviewing, I think these are great recommendations. I would ask for a clarification on and maybe I missed it, how we came up with the allocation recommendations. Right. So I would ask for a clarification on that, and we don't have to do that today if we don't need to. And then in terms of the other, about the elimination or reduction of water and sewer capacity and connection fees, I certainly understand why that makes a big deal, and I know Asheville, as you pointed out, does that. I would just want to get some clarification from our partners at Charlotte Water about what, if any, challenges that would cause them. And so at an initial glance, these look really good. Just want to study them a little bit further and get just a few clarifying points.
Sure, and if I can take 30 seconds, because it was right when I got cut off that I was explaining our allocation. The 60-30-10, I'll say real quickly, over the last 2 years, I think the city has funded 4 NOAAs, totaling just under $10 million, about $9.5 million. So that is why we came up with the idea of 30% of the 50 million would be about 15 million. So based on the actual demand that has come for NOAAs, that's where we came up with the 30%. As we'd said, if there's more demand over the first couple of RFP rounds, we could always make that adjustment. And then the 10% on the for sale was really about, because the city hasn't funded for sale, affordable for sale in this manner, we thought it made sense to see what the demand was first before committing more funds than that. If there is a tremendous amount of demand and it makes sense to redo those allocations, we think that makes sense. But we thought as an initial rollout, that was a good percentage to see how much demand there is for that trust fund. And the only comment I'll say from Charlotte Water, we have actually had these discussions over the years. And what the statement they have always made is they are a self-supporting entity. So if you do this, they obviously need to make up that revenue somewhere else. So they were kind of agnostic from a standpoint of, as long as they take city council direction as to how to set their policy to make sure they are a self-supporting entity. So if you have reductions or eliminations of fees on affordable, you would need to make that up somewhere else.
Right. And so we just would want to have more conversation about that. And perhaps, again, we'll have to study this a little bit more, but link those, if that were an agreed upon path forward, just perhaps linking it to targeting deeper affordability. But I need to study and think about that a little bit more. Again, these are initial recommendations.
All right. Commissioner Lindsay.
I'm glad Lee brought up that point. And because that's also on the radar for regulatory legislative, is the question about how building fees are applied. And so we will need to kind of delve into that a little bit more for the discussion that's coming up on that topic as well. The other thing that I would like to just kind of add to the discussion at this point is to have a sort of a consensus that what we're talking about now are really kind of high level things. And what my experience has been is that the high level principles are easy to agree to. The details obviously sometimes will produce results that we didn't anticipate. So I just would suggest that we need to be very cautious that when we establish the high level principles, that we do leave room for negotiation on those details. In particular, I like the idea of having the allocations targeted. We just need to ensure that the way that they're targeted doesn't restrict who can use the funds in terms of which developers or how many developers are out there that could use those funds. I think one of the challenges that we face is that we continue to have a very small number of producers and providers working on this problem of supply. And unless we figure out a way to expand that, we're going to still be in the same problem where we only have a few people working on the problem. So I just want to make sure that we keep that in mind as we develop the details on these things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Thank you, Fred and Lee. The action item from this presentation is for all task force members to provide your comments, feedback, and input directly to Fred and Lee. CC Ms. Weidman on them, and then we'll compile those over the next week. They will come back with an amended recommendation, and we will then vote on those recommendations to forward to the City Council for their consideration. We have 3 more presentations and about 30 minutes on the clock, so I want to try to move us along quickly and introduce the next topic.
A question about Housing Trust Fund. I requested from the lawyers to give an expanded view about what the ballot language and all that could look like. Is there any update that we were going to get on that?
Mr. Winston, I thought we provided that, but let me circle back in my notes and with the attorney's office to see, to make sure that you get what you're looking for.
Okay, I talked to Mr. Baker the end of last week, and I don't recall getting any response. I know it was being worked on, but I don't remember.
Okay, let me circle back with him to make sure that you are followed up with, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Our next agenda item is introducing a new topic to the task force, which is financial assistance, which is number 2 on our 7-point work plan. And I welcome Kathy and Doronda and Connie to the table and thank them for the work that they have done thus far. And I will turn the program over to them.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. So I attended a webinar yesterday presented by Metro Study where Ali Wolf, who is the lead economist with Myers Research, stated that the most impacted by job loss or reduced hours are those earning less than $50,000 a year. And unfortunately, this group is primarily represented by people of color. And obviously, to state the obvious, this is precisely the target residents we want to assist. So it's the low-income earners, less than 80% of the area median income, as Ms. Weidman mentioned. However, rather than making recommendations on what we think we know, we want to gather community feedback to ensure we're not missing anything and make sure that we're addressing all areas of need. So as such, we're going to be issuing a survey to baseline the housing needs prior to COVID-19 and the demand and needs identified by community partners after the crisis began. We're also exploring best practices of communities who have enacted COVID-19 relief, and we'll be returning with an economist delivering a future presentation on who can discuss the short-term and long-term impact of COVID-19 on the Charlotte economy. So as we formulate our recommendations, we want to be fully informed and mindful of the resources we have available to us. More to come on that, and we welcome questions and feedback, but just to go over the financial assistance work stream, we're looking at the financial assistance for single-family, multifamily property owners, rent relief, and examining local support to plug the gaps for federal and unemployment programs. So we do have a speaker today that we asked to join us. So Mr. Meacham is going to give us an update on Oblivion, but I welcome any feedback from Connie and Deronda. And also I want to make sure I thank Kim Graham as well, because she's attending as she's able to, but she's been supplying some support and recommendations as well.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Meacham. Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me and see me?
We can hear you. I think you got some video as well. Thank you very much for being with us today. I'm going to put you on the clock, so you got about 5 to 6 minutes to get to your presentation. We're approaching a very hard deadline.
I will do my best tobacco auctioneer routine. It's good to see everyone healthy, and thank you so much for what you're doing for our community. Again, my name is Fulton Meacham, CEO and President of Oblivion, formerly the Charlotte Housing Authority. And we want to talk a little bit today about the Housing Choice Voucher Program and what that is. The Housing Choice Voucher Program is a federally funded rental assistance program. It's designed to assist families, the elderly, disabled, veterans, basically access the private rental market. We at Oblivion actually are the largest provider of affordable housing in the city and actually even in the state. Through the Housing Choice Voucher Program, we actually distribute about $50 million in the community in rental subsidies a year. We have 4,500 tenant-based vouchers. And so as I talk about the Housing Choice Voucher, there are kind of two different vouchers. One is a tenant-based voucher, one's a project-based voucher. So let me first talk about tenant-based voucher. A tenant-based voucher follows the tenant, okay? And so with those 4,500, which you know mostly is probably the Section 8 program, that's the largest component of our rental subsidy program. We have another one called a project-based program, which that program itself now stays with the unit, right? It stays with an actual unit, and that's the difference between tenant-based and project-based. But again, just letting you know that the 4,500 tenant-based units that we have, that we get from HUD, has been that way for the last 20 years. We haven't gotten another allotment of those simply because our population has been increased. And so that's an issue of not having, in some cases, enough subsidies to go around for all the people that actually need them. And so, and just one more thing about the project-based voucher, you can also use the project-based voucher in development, because you can use those project-based vouchers to assist you in meeting your financial needs because those vouchers actually help meet the delta between what the actual rent is and what the person can actually pay. So we understand, I hope we understand a little bit more about the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And now we have to get more than just the bricks and sticks of it, but talk about the other opportunities that are available in the Housing Choice Voucher Program. We have an opportunity voucher where we have, we're moving families into higher opportunity areas. Why are we moving families into higher opportunity areas? We are seeing through the Chetty study that moving people into higher opportunity areas improves their economic mobility. And so we have 37 of those vouchers that have been now placed in high opportunity areas throughout the Mecklenburg County. We are moving to work agency, which means that we have some flexibilities when it comes to federal regulations. And we have a supportive services program with a work requirement where we have case managers that work with our residents, and they do everything from helping them assist with childcare, education, transportation, whatever the barriers would be that preventing them to actually be able to go to work. We provide them services to help them move from dependency to independence. We also, in the same Housing Choice Voucher Program, and has a lot of versatility, as you can see, is that we have a home ownership program. So it's more than just rental assistance. It also provides an opportunity for families to achieve the American dream of home ownership by taking that Housing Choice Voucher, that's using round numbers. Let's say the voucher is worth $500. The resident themselves earn $1,500 a month. You're able to couple those two together and turn that into $2,000 to qualify for a mortgage. And we have 24 of those that we have helped families move from being a renter to a homeowner as of last year. The program itself, we've been looking at enhancements to the program for the last 3 years. We've been working with the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association to develop some of these enhancements. I'll quickly run through some of them and then we'll get to Q&A. We have a $250 signing bonus now for apartments and or single family homes that sign on to us to house our residents. We also are providing a funding bonus for individuals while you're in between leasing our units. If you lease to another Housing Choice Voucher participant, we will pay the rent during that time, during that period of time that you're actually simply getting the unit ready. We also have a risk and damage fund that we have that's $1,000. So if a resident should happen to damage your unit, on top of the security deposit that you already have, we'll also add an additional $1,000 to that. Our inspection processes used to be basically every year. We moved those to every 2 years. And in the inspection process, the push and pull with the private sector has always been that in some cases it was, I think, a little difficult for them to understand how we were doing the inspections while we were doing the inspections. And so now if you should fail an inspection, what you can do is simply take a picture of the items that failed, right? And just email those back to us. One of the biggest barriers for our residents in the market right now to finding housing is the source of income discrimination. I'm sure you've heard of that before. Basically what that means is you can have a voucher worth $1,000 and an apartment that's worth $1,000, and that apartment provider can simply say no because you have a Housing Choice Voucher. And myself, along with about 29 other organizations in the city, are working extremely hard to try to basically by right make that illegal, because what we're seeing is that if a family can afford to pay, and you can afford to pay based on the Housing Choice Voucher, if you have good credit, if you have no criminal background history, if you have you can pay the security deposit, you should be able to rent anywhere in this city. And based on some of the information I just heard from you today on your Recovery Act plans, I mean, you have a rental assistance program as well. And so some of those dollars could be exposed to source of income discrimination as well if it's not something that's addressed. So that is my presentation. That was as fast as I could go, Chair. So if you have any questions, please, I'm open to them now.
I think Councilmember Johnson has a question for you. Councilmember Johnson?
Okay. Thank you for that was a great presentation. I wanted some more information on the project-based vouchers.
Okay.
One of the things we hear about building affordable housing, especially for 30%, is that it's too expensive to build. Would the project voucher, could developers work with Enlivian to bridge that gap? Or can you explain how that would bridge the gap for developers in order to be able to afford to build the affordable housing?
Right. So yes, they can. And right now we have a relationship with the city where we're actually providing 36 project-based vouchers to the Housing Trust Fund if those units are going to be in high opportunity areas. Okay. So why are we doing that though? Okay. So basically, you heard about that tenant-based voucher before. We have 4,500 of those.
Right.
A project-based voucher is basically just taking a tenant-based voucher, okay, and moving it now to an actual project. So it's not an added subsidy. It is simply just taking the 4,500 and you take one away, right? And so now you have 4,999, okay? And so right now we have residents living within the city. The question is, how do we move them to higher opportunity areas to make sure that they have, and the children have a better opportunity as they move up this economic ladder? That was one. Two, the subsidy itself covers the gap between what it costs to actually operate a unit, okay, and what the resident can pay. And so what that means is they're able to now actually get more debt because of the income that the housing choice voucher or the project-based voucher provides to that particular unit. And so it makes it now feasible to develop it because they have the rental subsidy to be able to offset the construction cost and the debt that's associated with it.
Ms. Metz? I'm sorry. Ms. Johnson, you have another question?
Well, you said you had a cap of 45 or 4,900?
45, yes, 4,500.
Which includes the project-based and the housing choice voucher, right?
Correct.
So right now, and I'm sure the city has used their project-based vouchers. Is there availability right now for a developer to say, in Enlivian, we'd like to build affordable housing, but we cannot afford to build the 30%. Can we obtain project-based vouchers? Is that an option?
Right now, it's an option, but it's through the Housing Trust Fund. Right, and so the 36 that we've been giving to the Housing Trust Fund kind of, in some ways, is maxing out what we can give in a year.
Okay. So Pam, have those project-based vouchers been used in development?
Yes, ma'am. So what Mr. Meacham is referring to is a fairly new agreement. I think, Mr. Meacham, correct me if I'm wrong, and Connie, I think we've been doing this for about 2 years now. So we have implemented that partnership, and those vouchers are currently being used to further leverage your housing trust fund dollars.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Metz?
All right. Well, first of all, Mr. Meacham, thank you for your presentation and for Enlivian being such a great partner to our homeless housing agencies and making homelessness a priority for with the Housing Authority. So I want to ask you, so through the CARES Act, we're getting some funding to do several things around homelessness. Enlivian, will you guys be getting resources from the Federal CARES Act, and will we see more vouchers to respond to COVID-19?
Good question. Yes, we will receive some additional dollars through the CARES Act. Predominantly, it is to offset the losses in rent from families that lost their employment during this period of time. And so the way it works is that, we have families out here that were working. And so as you develop a budget, you're developing based off of the fact that individuals were working at a particular time. So you had less minimum renters that were there. Because of COVID, we're seeing that a lot of families are losing them. And so let's say they were paying $200, $300 a month in rent. Now the issue is they may only be able to pay $75. And so most of those COVID dollars are going to again, address those issues so those families are not evicted, so they can continue to live where they live in, and we can pay those rents. And on the other side of it is the administrative aspects of this COVID. I'm sure everybody in the PPEs and reorganizing their areas, everybody's spending those dollars on those things. So that's what it's really for. It's no additional vouchers. That was something that we were really asking for. Maybe it could be in the next supplemental, but we have not seen any indication yet that they will add additional vouchers as a part of that, because I think the long-term issue is they would have to pay for those vouchers over the next 10, 15 years, and I think that's been one of the stumbling blocks.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Ms. Cummings?
I just want to make sure they is HUD.
Ms. Cummings?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Meacham. I appreciate the update. So is the reason that HUD hasn't given Charlotte additional vouchers over the last 20 years, is it because of the unused vouchers, that because the landlords wouldn't accept them, or is it something else that's driving that? And will the new rules that you put into place within Livian, will that help propel some of the usage of the vouchers that are out there?
Well, let me start with the last thing you said first. We are definitely hoping that all of the incentives that we have put out there does make it easier for our families to find housing in the marketplace. That's truly a barrier. I mean, right now it takes an individual roughly about 75 days to find a unit. Over the last 3 years, because they only have a certain amount of time to actually find a unit. We have been increasing that time from 120 days to 180 days, and because of COVID, we've actually extended another 60 days after the stay-at-home order. And so people were losing their vouchers because they were being denied housing because of source of income discrimination. And so we hope that that stops in the future. As far as when it comes to HUD and why we're not receiving additional vouchers, really that is a priority of Congress, right? And so the real issue is populations are growing. And as they're growing, more of those families are actually $50,000 and below, right? And so those individuals start to qualify for assistance like our rental assistance program. It just has not been a focus at HUD to increase that number. Okay, it's been steadily at that, and it's basically, I think, more advocacy that we're going to need through Charlotte, through North Carolina, to see if we can get additional vouchers for our cities that need them, especially growing cities like Charlotte.
Mr. Winston? I'm sorry, Ms. Metz, you have another question? Connie? Okay. Mr. Winston?
Yeah, just remembering that, the point of this task force is to find solutions that keep people housed continuously and hopefully permanently through this COVID crisis. I think source of income discrimination is an important topic to attack. There are many people in our city who would be able to have secure housing if it were not for the discrimination, the legal discrimination that they face. So my question to the task force, this is something that Livian and other groups have brought up to City Council before, something that I've tried to get onto our legislative agenda this year. It didn't work. But if there is an appetite to make a statement or a recommendation to carry to Raleigh to end the legal source of income discrimination, because that is something that can help us in this pandemic with the stroke of a pen. And I would like to get, I would move I would make a motion for a recommendation from this task force to lobby for an end to source of income discrimination in North Carolina.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Winston. That's actually already in our work plan, and another subgroup will be taking up that issue, source of income discrimination. And so it's work that we're going to address, and I concur with you and welcome the conversation at the appropriate time. But that's something that we.
When is the appropriate time is been brought up today, right now? And it's something that can immediately be done.
Which section is it in, Ms. Wyman? It's in our work plan, so it's already scheduled to be discussed, but let me find out when and where.
So my question was to the whole task force as well. So I made a motion. If it doesn't get seconded, sure. But it's something that we can do pretty easily, pretty quickly. The legislature is in session right now, and it's a message that could be carried.
Mr. Chair, this is Anthony. I have that as part of my work plan. That is in item 4. That we are obviously undertaking to work toward getting it included in the city's ordinance on fair housing. That was one of our targets and the objective. And I agree with Councilmember Braxton that we do need to include it in our legislative agenda. I think that there is some potential model legislation in the works that we're exploring, and it may be prudent for us to continue to work on that before we move forward with any recommendations at the state level. So while I would support his motion, I would just request that we give ourselves some time to look at that and see if we can come up with something that we would want to put forward as part of the process. And as I said, that's coming up on under my task on task number 4. And if you don't mind, while I'm here, I would also like to say that I think it's important for us to make sure that we do tie the use of any sort of subsidies that the city provides to some obligation by the recipients when it's a landlord that they would agree to accept housing choice vouchers as part of the condition of receiving any subsidies from us. Housing trust fund dollars or any other dollars that are related to rental assistance, if you're willing to take some dollars from us, you should be willing to take any of our dollars. And that is a subsidy that's available and should be used. So hopefully as we look at the rest of these programs, we will keep that in mind and also make sure that they're included as a policy and not just as a practice.
That's a great point. And the Housing Trust Fund does already come with that stipulation, but I would ask for clarification around what we just the $10 million that we just recommended early in this meeting, if that same stipulation applies to landlords accepting rental relief. That's a great question.
Well, all right, so let's see if we can get a little back in order, and so we can process what everyone is asking and requesting. So let's go back to income source discrimination. I agree with that recommendation moving forward that Mr. Lindsay discussed. Also, timing is really important. While the legislature are in session, that item will probably is best suited for a long session where it will actually be taken up. And I think that's what we want, not only for it to be on the agenda, but for people to discuss it. And I think if we've given the luxury of time of getting information from Commissioner Lindsay and put a little bit more work into it, that I think it will be ready for presentation on our agenda in January. But that's my thought. So I did not hear a second.
I have my hand up. I second the motion. I would also want to add that criminal background, I have a passion for that, for advocating for formerly incarcerated. So we've received ordinance proposal or language proposals from the community regarding the source of income discrimination and also the criminal background. So I just have a question. I know that the recommendations from the task force were presented to council because the city staff and the chair were able to determine what the task force wanted. Although committees are still working on the nuts and bolts or different recommendations. So I would second this motion. I do respect your experience, though, Malcolm, if you think that the longer term, the legislation or the session is the best time to present it. But if there's a way that we can address this, we know it's a critical need. We know with COVID, it's exacerbating the need. And we all know, I think as housing advocates, that it's a priority in our community. So I second Mr. Winston's motion.
All right, so we have that on the table for discussion, so let's discuss it. And I saw Councilmember Elliston. Did I see your hand?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just trying to, I guess, get re-clarification. This is something that's being discussed in one of our working groups, and so what was the process we had? I just don't understand if this is being discussed in a working group and we're planning to have them present those discussions to us. Are we voting on something before the working group presents it?
Well, that's my thought. Again, one of the things we did when we established the work plan was kind of divided the work up in 7 phases. This goes under regulatory and legislative affairs. It's something that I support in terms of discussing and moving forward, so I'm not against it at all. I'm just saying that the timing of it is probably better suited for a discussion under Commissioner Lindsay's working group, where we can get public input and support, the same as we've done before, build support in the community with Habitat and others who are in favor of it. I know the Housing Authority, i.e. Olivian, wants it as well. And so I think we just need to process it differently, notwithstanding the urgency in the community. And I think it's scheduled for sometime in July. And again, procedurally, and I'm just sharing knowledge, we want to build a statewide coalition with us on something like this. And this is a topic that would probably best suited for the long session versus a short session. Those guys are wanting to vote and move on.
So I would just, and I'm fully supportive personally of income source discrimination being put in place so that folks can't be turned away because they have vouchers. A couple of things. One, I kind of feel like voting on this, if we've asked Commissioner Lindsay's working group to work on this, then to me it's a little out of order to vote on it before we allow them to even do so and present it to us. And I don't know if everybody who's going to be a part of this discussion is as familiar with the issue as some of us on council are. So I would be inclined to allow them to do that despite my support for the issue in general. And 2, and I don't want to put her on the spot, so she's welcome to pass, but if Ms. Weidman has an opinion on what the right course of action is here, symbolically supporting it is one thing, but if it puts us in a weaker position to actually achieve it, then I think that it kind of defeats the purpose. So I don't want to lower our chances of success just due to eagerness to symbolically support it. So if Ms. Weidman is comfortable telling us what she thinks the stronger strategy or path forward is, I'd be interested to hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Eggleston. I would agree with what you just articulated as well. I'm very supportive in that. I don't think people should be discriminated on, but I think that we should get some intelligence from our legislative staff here at the city. And I do also support building a stronger coalition across the state that in hopes would yield us some success on the issue.
Mr. Cochran.
All right, Councilmember Eggleston took my comment, so I wanted to say that I support it, but I do think if we need to move it up on the work plan because of a sense of urgency, I'd be fine with moving something within the work plan, but I do think it should come through that group. And as a landlord that takes Section 8 vouchers and willingly does so, I'm certainly in support of others people doing it as well.
All right, so there is a motion with a second on the floor. I don't want to vote it down, but I'll call the question so we can vote. And again, the issue is for us to, could you restate your motion, Mr. Winston, so we can all know what we're voting on?
To make a recommendation to Charlotte City Council to lobby our General Assembly to end source of income discrimination, as this can bear an immediate relief effect for our COVID housing issues.
Would you take a friendly amendment from me if we just move it up on the agenda, still allow Commissioner Lindsay to work on it, but we bring it up on our agenda sooner than later, sooner being within the next week or two?
Just replace item 3. Replace it with item 3.
Yeah, can we just, if you would withdraw your motion, if we would just go ahead and schedule it for June 18th?
I'm not going to remove my motion. We'll just have to vote it down.
Okay. Let's go for a roll call. I vote no. Malcolm Graham. Councilman Eggleston.
Again, supportive of the issue, but not the process on this one, so no.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Winston.
Yes.
Mr. Cochran.
No.
Ms. Cummings. Ms. Cummings. Mr. Dodson.
My apologies. I voted no until we hear from the subcommittee.
Thank you. Mr. Dodson.
No.
Ms. Graham.
To give my colleague time to flesh this out and educate us, I'm going to respectfully vote no.
Mr. Lindsay.
No.
Mr. Metz. Ms. Metz, I'm sorry.
No.
And Connie.
Yes.
Okay. That motion fails. All right.
And Mr. Chair Graham, I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify. What I understood that Councilmember Winston's motion was to move it forward to council to lobby to begin the discussion. We could work out the nuts and bolts from the subcommittee, and I feel that this is the same thing that was done with the recommendations. We had the framework, and staff was able to move forward, and we're still getting information and recommendations from the task force and the subcommittees. So this would just be to begin the lobbying process.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes,
Ms. Johnson, with all due respect, it's been called and voted on, and it's been denied. All right, so
thank you. Thank you for the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next agenda item, which would be, I'm trying to make sure I find my place again where we are. We're on to other business, and I turn it over to Ms. Pam Ms. Whiteman for the introduction.
Yes, just really quickly, this is a follow-up to last week's meeting. Mr. Eggleston, you asked a great question about kind of what was the staff's perspective on the data around affordable housing that was presented. We've done some work based on that discussion, and I'd just like to introduce Rebecca Hefner, who is our very competent and capable data manager here, to offer some explanation about how we measure affordability in this city. And what I would say, just to tee her up, is that affordability, we look at it more so as a relationship. We look at it based on a couple of things, kind of what's happening in Charlotte today, meaning who lives here and how that matches with the housing stock. We also, when you're talking about affordable units in the community, we look at households, meaning the number and the size and the income of those households. We look at the actual housing units, and then we also look at that. Look at the area median income, and we also remember that relationship is fluid. So Rebecca is going to walk us through a presentation that will hope add another perspective on how we measure our affordable rental housing here in the city of Charlotte. With that, Rebecca, I'll introduce you.
Thank you, Pam. Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. I work as a part of the Department of Innovation and Technology, but I did spend a couple of years of my city career in housing and neighborhood services. So you'll probably notice in this presentation that I'm particularly passionate when I'm talking about housing data. As Pam noted, there will be a lot of numbers in this presentation, and we'll certainly provide you with the data and the methods and follow up if it's something you want to really dig into. But you don't have to kind of track all of those numbers today. I really just want to focus on the concepts of how we measure affordable rental housing in a way that's meaningful to staff and helps them make decisions about housing programs and strategies. Next slide, please. So we report regularly to you on the number of housing units that we create or preserve, but it certainly begs the question, how many affordable rental housing units have we lost? And the next question is, can we track that? So I'm going to respond to that in two ways. First, there is no data set or combination of data sets that can really answer accurately on a unit level how many individual specific units we have lost. We do have lots of data sets, but they're incomplete. We can track the number of demolished units. We can track some of the rents across Charlotte. We have good data on large-scale NOAA complexes, but we have only average rent information. We can see trends, but it's not granular enough to track on a unit level. We also have about 30% of our affordable rental housing are single-family housing units, and so we're unable to track kind of a comprehensive rent database for those units. So because of all of those factors, we really don't have a way to track specifically how many housing units we've lost. And even if we could estimate it accurately, it's not quite answering what we need to know. Next slide, please. So the second part of my response is then, okay, what do we really need to know in order to inform our programs and strategies? And the question that we ask in order to do that from the data is, what is happening in Charlotte in the relationship between the people who live here and our housing stock? So this is really useful to understand, because if you understand it, you can respond directly to it with housing investments. You can guide decision making, and this is the best part. It's a question that we have the data to answer. So, almost. I'll note one limitation here, especially for Deronda, but also quite a bit of the discussion today about homelessness. We do not have this data for households that are not currently in housing. So there's a kind of inherent undercount in the need for housing at 30% and below, because we do not capture the homeless population in these data. So as Pam said, we're really looking at this relationship. What's the relationship between households, housing units, and then broadly the area median income? And that relationship is really fluid. People move here and they move away. Housing units are built and demolished, and they age. Rents go up. Sometimes they go down, not as often. Units are converted to rental, back to owner occupancy. Babies are born. Kids go off to college. These are all factors that influence affordability, because the size of the household and its total income, promotion. A person gets a promotion, a job is lost, on any given day, affordability could change for a household. So just want to make a note that this relationship is really fluid. Next slide, please. So what we're trying to figure out then is, if we account for all of these changes and we look at points in time, which we look at every year, are there more or fewer affordable units in the city of Charlotte? Are there more or fewer households in need of affordable housing? And then how do the households relate to the housing units? So are the households that need affordable housing in the housing units that are affordable to them? We talk about that as rental match. Next slide, please. So we can track these net impacts, right? It's difficult for us to know the specific number of affordable units that are lost day to day or year over year, but we can track the net impacts on demand and related to supply. And so we calculate this every year using census data called the PUMS data. It's microdata, so there's a lag. So what you're going to see today is really the latest year of data available. That's 2018. New numbers are published each October. We run the scripts and we send this information to housing staff to let them know what the trends are and if there's any adjustments that need to be made. So the first thing to do is you take a look at the sample and you assign each household to an AMI level based on their size, household size and income, so the number of people and their total income. You assign each housing unit to an AMI level based on its bedroom size and gross rent. So you have to make a lot of adjustments for things in the data, but we've run it pretty automatically now. Next slide, please. So the question arose really looking at 2014 to 2018, how has the demand for affordable rental housing in Charlotte changed over time? So this is really about what housing products people need. And the positive news here is that over the last 5 years at 30% and below AMI, the total number of households at that level has gone down. Around 7,000. There's some plus or minus margin of error in these data, so I'm going to round when I say the numbers. But there's a corresponding increase in the number of households at the next two levels of AMI, particularly at 31 to 50%. And then, of course, you can see there the total increase in number of households. Next slide, please. And then the question is, how has the supply of affordable rental housing units in Charlotte changed? And this is over that same period of time. So the question being about what housing products are in the market, though these might not necessarily be available for rent. At 30% and below is a very slight increase, which I would say due to estimation is staying relatively flat, but then a decline in units at 31 to 50 and an increase at 51 to 80. What we're really seeing is when you look at these two kind of slope graphs together is that we're already seeing a gap. On the previous slide, the blue line was where the gray line is on this one and vice versa. The red and yellow lines were lower. So what we're really thinking then is, okay, how do we smush these two things together to determine what's the gap in affordable rental housing? Next slide, please. So in addition to looking at the difference between demand and supply, which we've just looked at, we also really need to be paying attention to rental mismatch. So not every household rents according to their income. There are, either by constrained choice or necessity, however constrained those choices may be. Lots of households rent up, in a rental unit that is more than their AMI level. That could be to access amenities or to be in a particular location, close to family or jobs, or just because there's a lack of units. Other households might be renting down, so they're renting at a lower AMI level. Saves them money. That's a great strategy. Also, there's a lack of units at the high end. In addition, some households who just stay put and whose fluid relationship to affordable housing has changed may no longer be in a rental match. And so that's what we call it. HUD calls it affordable and available when a unit at a specific AMI level is occupied by a household of that same level. But in this presentation, we're referring to it as a renting match. So there's renting up, there's renting down, and there's renting match. So what we then do is put all of that together and look at how has the affordability gap changed over time. And for those of you who were here when when the most recent housing framework was adopted, this is the same information that was used to inform that housing framework. This is just an update to those numbers. Next slide, please. So similar to the previous graphs that you saw earlier in the presentation, the housing gap at 30% and below has gone down. Correspondingly, at 31 to 50%, it's gone up. Declined a little bit at 51 to 80, down to where we're almost even there. But the gap above 80%, while it went down slightly, it continues to be high, and that puts availability pressure on the lower cost rental units. Next slide, please. So I just want to illustrate briefly what that really looks like when you break down the numbers and how that then informs housing programs. And in fact, it's directly aligned, the data that we see here are directly aligned to the strategies that you are talking about and the recommendations that you're talking about today. So essentially what you have is, and this is a graph that shows the comparison between the number of households and the number of housing units at each level of AMI. So for each level, you have on the left households and on the right housing units. And those housing units show either the rental match, that's the green part on the bottom of the stacked bar, or housing units that are occupied by households renting up or renting down. So these red numbers represent the gap, and that gap is the same as the numbers you saw on the previous slide. So it's the difference in the number of renter households and the number of units that are occupied by households at that level of AMI. Next slide. I just want to illustrate briefly what that looks like. If you're a household, for example, at 31 to 50% AMI, and you're looking for housing, so that's this red box. So you either get lucky and you can find housing in the 30% AMI and below level, and you follow that gray area, and you are one of those 5,000 households occupying lower cost housing, or many more of households who have to then seek higher cost housing, or may by choice in the levels above, and that's following the purple arrows to the right, either into the 51 to 80% AMI or greater than 80% AMI.
I gotta ask a clarifying question here. That's a pretty big statement if I'm reading this. Oh, partly, excuse me, I'm sorry, just partly. I thought it said something else. Continue, I'm sorry.
Please continue.
Thank you. So what I want to just quickly end on then is just to talk a little bit about how these data really align with the recommendations and the work that our housing programs already do. So, there is this mismatch. There's a gap and a mismatch. And so, we can't just pick up households and move them around. But as you were talking earlier, we do have a really effective tool, and that's the ability to income restrict units. So what we're, next slide, please. So what we really are trying to do when we think about housing strategies is how do we help households access the housing they need, or get the housing that exists to where it is needed. So you can see that the number of housing units at 51 to 80% AMI is high. So how do we get those units either to income restrict them so that they're lower AMI, or move people into them? The housing services manager, Warren Wooten, has worked with me a lot to understand these data over the years, and he frames it as add, protect, move. So you want to add, so there's certainly a gap at the lower ends of the AMI. So you want to add new units there to fill the gap. The market is clearly working hard to fill that gap that you see at over 80% AMI. And the hope is then that some higher income units who are in the gray bar at 80% may choose to move up and free up some space there. And then the protect is really when you rehab and acquire, and you're talking about NOAA acquisition, and then income restricting. That can be income restricted over time to lower AMI households, or paired up with vouchers. So all of the things that you've been talking about today. Next slide, please. This is just a quick graphic to show you where housing programs are really responsive to the gap and the mismatch. Trust fund investments, of course, go across that add, protect, move strategies. A lot of the acquisition and rehab under the protect, and home purchase assistance. And you talked about affordable for sale housing. It both income restricts for sale housing and makes it more affordable. It makes it more affordable to households, but it also can help by moving people into owner-occupied units and creating new opportunities for rentals and income restriction. So last slide, please. Oh, sorry, one more. There you go, thank you. Oh, one more, sorry. Just to note, for example, the bottom there, you can see the income restricted units that are created or approved by the Housing Trust Fund. This includes ones that have been recently approved but not constructed yet. They are really contributing to closing that affordability gap, both by creating new supply and with the income restriction helping to improve that match. Nearly half of the units at 30% AMI and below as of 2018 have been created through support from the Housing Trust Fund. And next slide, please. So that's just a quick summary. When you look at the overall affordable housing gap, that's the actual number that we look at year over year. It's almost 32,000 units affordable to households at less than 50% AMI. So what we're really looking for is, do the programs and strategies that we put in place help that number to go down? So the lower the number, the better the match. Not just the ability to build units, but also protect and move. Of course, this is a top-level summary. There's lots of data underneath these numbers that we take a look at as well. And just the final caveat that it's still only part of the picture. There's a lot of other issues related to housing that this doesn't address. But just wanted to share with you all today, this is the way that at the city we measure the change in affordable rental units, and use those numbers by working through them with housing staff to inform programs, and also just great to hear that the recommendations y'all are making are very aligned with where we are on the data. Of course, there's a lot to learn about the impacts of COVID-19 and how that will change the need in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Larkin, you're up for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a great presentation, great data, and even just this top line summary I think is going to take some time for us to be able to digest. If you could go back to the first, there were back-to-back slides, probably a third to halfway into the presentation. You could pull those up. I'd like to ask a couple of quick questions about that.
I think it's slides 6 and 7, Wendy. I'm going to guess.
Yep. There we go. So, let's see. This is demand for, that was the first one, right? And the next one's supply of. So, on this one, Well, first of all, is it safe to assume that there are close to no units priced at the 30% and below AMI level in our community that are naturally at that price point now, and that almost all of those would be subsidized in some way or another?
It's pretty close. So in the data, we can't differentiate between NOAA and income restricted housing, but we can see that about half of the units at 30% and below is the same number as 30% and below units that Housing Trust Fund has created. Now, that's not the universe of 30% and below units, so it's probably pretty close. The other thing I would say, though, is there are also housing units in Charlotte that are occupied without payment of rent. So if you have a housing unit and say you have a family member who's living there but not paying rent, that counts as a 30% and below unit. We can't answer the question specifically, Mr. Eggleston, but even from the data person, I would say it's safe to assume that you're probably pretty close to not having any naturally occurring at that level.
So I'm just taken aback, surprised at the idea that if I'm reading this right, that in a 4-year span, our demand for, which I would say is close to synonymous with our need for, 30% and below units has gone down significantly. That to me, I mean, maybe partly because there are very few, if any, naturally occurring, those aren't the ones being torn down, and the ones being torn down are in that next tier where it does look like the demand has gone up. So maybe we're not losing those at 30% below. It just seems, it's hard for me to wrap my head around the idea that our need at 30% below is quote unquote improving.
Yeah, so it is when you think about what you're seeing from the housing stock side. Two things to remember. This one, where we're looking at need or demand, is really looking just at the measurement of the number of households at 30% and below. And in the data, that's going down. There's the thinking about the lag, the economy is really improving over this time period, 2014 to 2018. Households may be low. The households at the lowest AMI may be getting displaced from the city over this time period. This number at 30% and below rises and falls with broader economic conditions.
So it's almost kind of like when someone who's out of a job stops looking for a job, they're no longer counted as unemployed at some point, potentially. Or I guess if their wages have increased and they're at the 31%, all of a sudden the demand for that unit creates the lower one in the yellow line, and that demand is counted in the 31 to 50% at that point.
Yeah.
I'd be interested.
This is primarily an issue, if you look at this, of that 30% and below moving up, and probably, like you say, only a little bit into the 31 to 50, right? Because if you're renting a 50% unit and you are at 32% AMI, you might be in the right slot, but you're still going to be cost burdened. Right. So when we look at the cost burden data, the percentage of cost burden households continues to rise. And the other thing, again, I'll just emphasize that we're not seeing in these numbers is homelessness. And so when they're, or overcrowding, or people that are living in transient living situations, because again, these are data from the census. It's only tracking households in housing units.
It might be interesting to overlay these charts with our point in time count that measures the amount of homelessness where people are experiencing in Charlotte, to see if are people slowly climbing up the ladder and moving from the 30 and below to 31 to 50, or are they falling off the ladder and going from the 30 and below to completely housing insecure or homeless?
And what's happening probably is both.
Yeah. Could you advance one more to the supply of, please?
He's advancing it for you.
Yep, we've got now. Well, whatever the question this slide caused me to have, has slipped my mind. So I'll come back later if I think of it, but I appreciate it. And I would like to get the data underneath all this so that it's something that when we're not tight on time, we can all dig into as task force members and council members, because I think there's a lot of useful information here. So thank you.
Point well taken, council member. We will do that for you. There were 2 hands up that went down, and so if there's any other questions, Mr. Lindsay, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councilman Graham. 2 things. One, I really appreciate Rebecca giving us this information. It looks very familiar to me, having served on the original Housing Trust Fund Advisory Board. We've seen these numbers for quite a while now. I just want to kind of make sure that I'm clear. If we assume that we are subsidizing the gap at somewhere in the neighborhood of about $25,000 per unit from Housing Trust Fund or whatever the source is, if that's the subsidy that's needed, and we've got about a 32,000 unit gap, we're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of around 800 million. And that's what it would take to build our way out of the situation if we were trying to subsidize and build new units. So I think this really does emphasize the importance of not just relying on how do we use the city to address the problem, in that we have to work very diligently to engage the private sector. We need everybody working on how do we address this problem. I'm afraid that some of those folks who are in that 30% and below have fallen off because they've become unemployed and weren't counted as income earners, which is the other piece of this, is that those people that we're talking about at these income levels are actually really the working poor. These are people who are working every day and just can't seem to make it because of the wages that they earn. So I just want everybody to kind of get a sense of the scope of the problem and understand the importance of us really working to forge partnerships with the private sector and do what we can to use our dollars to leverage what the private sector is doing and remove those kind of framework mentalities that we've had that have kept us in this box before, of not doing that and using our dollars as leverage. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lindsay. We will circle back with the data for a further deep dive. We can schedule that for sure. And we have one more speaker, and I know it's been a long meeting. Thanks to everyone for your patience, but this is regarding the mediation, and we wanted to bring that for you to continue that conversation that we had last week. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Williams.
Okay, thank you very much once again for inviting me to speak on the City of Charlotte's Community Relations Dispute Settlement Program.
I did.
As a quick recap, I think I have a slide presentation.
Yeah, and if you can just jump straight to slide number 4, Ms. Williams. I think we'll be good with that. Just for the
Eviction, yes.
evictions, yes.
This is this.
And we're pulling it up for you right now, beginning with slide number 4. Five more seconds, they tell me. Thank you for your understanding, Ms. Williams.
Yes, certainly. Yes, we were asked specifically today to talk about the court backlog of cases and how dispute settlement program can assist with that. We are prepared to assist the court in handling the following types of cases: the landlord-tenant cases that have not yet come into the court system. We are trying to reach as many landlords and tenants to offer mediation to address concerns such as rent, payments, security deposits, property damage, etc., before they get into the court system. However, we're also prepared to address those eviction cases that have already been filed. In discussions with the courts, it appears that the 7-day turnaround to have cases processed may change to 60 days, which would allow mediation to be a more viable options in these cases. So we are prepared to do cases before they get into the court system, as well as once they get into the court system, to assist as many clients as we can. We're also able to do small claims cases filed for money owed, and other miscellaneous conflicts such as employer-employee disputes, some roommate issues, homeowner association complaints, and neighbor complaints as well. Next slide, please. Our mediation plans in regarding our mediators is currently we have 35 that are committed and prepared to provide sessions starting June the 1st. We have another 15 mediators that are committed to assist the program over the summer as their schedules allow. And we have 3 currently that are willing to do virtual as well as in-person mediations as long as the social distance guidelines are filed. However, we've been told by the courts that at this time they are minimizing the amount of traffic in the courts. So our in-person mediations may be on hold for a few more weeks. However, we will be ready to go fully virtually beginning June 1st. We will continue connecting with mediators to seek additional assistance during this time as well. Next slide, please. Our mediation projections, and these are conservative estimates, but we are projecting that we'll have 20 mediators on any given day that would be providing about 60 cases per day, so Monday through Friday. And that would be 300 mediations per week, which we are expecting to serve a total of 600 plus clients through those mediation efforts. Again, we have more mediators that are that are committed to us, so that those numbers may change. But on a conservative estimate, we feel that our 20 mediators could do 3 a day, which would give us that 300 case per week number. Our virtual mediations, we're scheduling them for 90-minute time slots. That will give us 1 hour for the mediation plus a 30-minute time frame to be a buffer in case a case would run over. And then our in-person mediations, we're scheduling slots for our mediators to be 2 hours, which again would be the 1 hour mediation plus the 30-minute buffer if there was a case ran over per se, and then 30 minutes for any cleansing or sanitizing efforts that we would need to do for the room to make it safe for the next case to go in to do mediation. And we're going to be monitoring and scheduling, and we anticipate changes as the COVID-19 restrictions lift, but we will be making those changes as necessary. Next slide, please. We have provided virtual options for mediations. We have already established secure conference lines for all of our staff members. We've developed a list of available conference lines and codes for all of our volunteer mediators so they can host confidential calls. And we've also assigned additional 3 staff members, allowing them with WebEx capability so they can host their own meetings. So they would not have to kick off for volunteer mediators. We assigned a staff liaison to volunteer mediators for technical support as well. Next slide, please. Reporting structure, our statistics on the numbers, we continue to do as well as mediation referrals received and completed. We also can collect statistics on the clients are served as well as the landlord-tenant calls that we received. And we take statistics based on the cases received prior to court involvement and after court involvement. So we will continue to create those statistics and provide them to the court as they have requested. And any cases that are referred to our program in error will be referred to legal aid for legal questions, crisis assistance. We will be working with them hand in hand to do our mediations for some of the individuals that may need rental assistance. However, if someone contacts our office that just needs financial questions, we can refer them to crisis assistance for help, as well as there's the proposed hotline being created to handle summary ejectment appeals cases and arbitration cases. So if our program was to receive any of those cases, we would refer them to the appropriate hotline. But we are prepared to do as many of the landlord-tenant cases pre and post court as we can. Next slide, please. Our next steps, DSP, we're currently creating a flyer for the clerk's office, and that flyer will go out into the court notifications, which is to be distributed next week. We're also compiling a resource sheet for all of our mediators to use when needed regarding some of the relief during the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as other resources that our mediators might need to help with the mediations. We have completed a When You Rent book that we will be providing electronically to the public, any of our partnering agencies, as well as to our mediators for assistance. And we're also working with the clerk's office to develop a case referral and completion paperwork process so we can ensure that as soon as a mediation is completed, we can get that information to the court so the cases can be dismissed. So another case could be put on the docket so we can get through the backlog as soon as possible. And we're going to be providing additional training to our office through Legal Aid has agreed to provide some additional training on some of the COVID-19 issues, as well as the CARES Act, and that will be provided to our office and to our mediators. So we have a lot of things that are in the works, but we are excited to get started beginning June 1st to provide as many mediations as we can. And with that, I will answer any questions that any of you may have.
Thank you for the presentation, and we'll take questions from the task force members, if there's any.
I have
no questions. Is there a question?
Yes, there's a question. Sorry, I couldn't get my hand raised on this thing somewhere. So given the increase, we know that we have 1,800 pending evictions right now in the court, on the court, or however we want to determine on the court docket filed or whatever it may be, and seeing that that's probably going to increase as we continue to go through this. There's a pretty impressive number already where we're at to be able to handle 300 a week. What kind of extra, or if any extra support, financial or whatever it may be needed, or are we considering necessary to handle this kind of deluge that we're going to experience?
Well, as I understand from the court, they are going to be trying to stagger cases, so we're not going to get all the 1,800 at once. I understand that. They're supposed to, I think, prioritizing some of their cases. We are continuously trying to reach other mediators that have been involved with our program to see their availability. We have gotten all of our staff involved that is willing to assist us with this process. And if need be, maybe asking for additional resources, staff resources to help us to accommodate any future influx of cases. We were continuously trying to train new mediators that they would be willing to come on board with us, and always looking to extend our pool so we would be in a position to serve the courts and to serve the community as much as possible.
Second question, last question I have, I think it's last question. I think it would be most desirable if these cases and these relationships never made it to the court process period or the magistrate period. Is there an opportunity, or is there an option, is something that we can stand up where and landlords enter mediation without this actual legal process started, which could be overall very detrimental to the renter in the short and long term?
Sure. We are trying to get the word out about our services to as many individuals before they enter the court system. We work closely with our magistrate's office. We work closely with the police department, sheriff's department to give us cases prior to. We've been working with the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association, local attorneys, legal aid. So as much as we can get the word out about our services and that we can do cases prior to even getting into the court system is our preference and our goal. We think we can reach more people that way. We also are going to be marketing our services on our website, but any avenues that anyone has to help us to get the word out. Doing presentations such as this will also help in that regard. But we are looking to try to get as many landlords, many apartment complexes, what have you, to refer their cases to mediation as an option prior to going to that route. Because if we can get the parties to sit down and discuss their issues, there's a really good chance that they can come to a resolution and never have to go into the court system. And that is our overall goal.
Well, so this is the last question or comment would be to members of the task force who specifically work with landlords and property owners. How do we get property owners to go through this process without entering into the legal process and putting these marks on residents in the first place?
Anybody want to tackle that?
I'm sorry.
I'm happy to respond to that. So I think the real answer is education and awareness. And the great thing is that we, the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association, are teaming up with Legal Aid and Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy to host a number of lunch and learns to educate property owners, whether that's single family or multifamily, about these services, especially since they're free. And as much as we can mitigate circumstances that might otherwise cause renters to have dings on their credit reports and just to have situations become more litigious than they ever need to be, I think is a great thing. I mean, I don't think the legal profession is going to suffer from us pushing mediation out to the world. So I think
they benefit.
So I think we will do our part proactively organizing lunch and learns, as many as we need to. It's just sending out information, whether it's flyers, e-blasts. I know Councilwoman Johnson took a picture of the side of the jury parking garage because there's a very big banner that normally shows all sorts of marketing things. So I think there are just ways to get the word out. And I think you raise a valid point, that is, we want to stop these from getting to the court system because legal costs are real and they cost all parties. So I think we just should all dig in where we can to do our part.
Okay, I want to give Ms. Johnson the last question, and I think our technology is going to expire relatively soon. So, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. I was just going to ask if there was a push to work with communications to really, really market this and push this out. And just thank you. I think this is a dynamic solution, so I'm excited about it. But is this an option for occupants in hotels who are considered permanent residents, or is that too gray for the city to handle? And if that's not something you can answer today, then we can get an answer later. But I know that it's gray if they're determined as a resident or a guest. So would that be something we can promote to these hotel owners as well?
Yes, I believe so. We can ask them basically if we can get the parties to sit down and discuss their issues. I don't see any reason why we would not be able to help the hotel industry as well, in whatever capacity they are having issues with the tenants. If it's a communication issue, if it's a rent issue, what have you, we will be able to do that, and our mediators will be able to assist as needed. So we would need to also get the word out to them that we can assist those hotels as well.
Okay, it's been a very long meeting. I want to thank everyone for your patience. Lee and Fred, I want to thank you for the great presentation. The financial team, we look forward to hearing more from you as you advance the conversation around financial support. I want to give one quick shout out to our technology guru who is not here with us today, Denadan Johnson. Get well. We're thinking about you, and we look forward to having you back in the room with us. Thanks everyone for your participation. Thanks those at home that bear with us, and this meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you.